mean, it's just embarrassing for the Secretary of Defense, frankly. But watching Chris Coons shut down Hegseth's freeloader narrative with the reality of Article 5 was absolutely necessary. Coons had to basically walk him through a history lesson on NATO, exposing just how hollow and insulting this administration's America First rhetoric actually is when you look at the facts. Let's watch the video, and I'll give you my take at the end.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, just a quick question to clarify something. Is a full year continuing resolution bad for the Department of Defense? Just yes or no?
Sir, a full year continuing resolution is never preferable for any department, especially the Department of Defense. Not preferable.
And I know, General Kane, I don't need to ask you because your written testimony specifically says routinely operating under continuing resolutions lowers buying power, results in less deployable capital, makes it harder for industry to make long-term investments. And is it your commitment, Mr. Secretary, that you'll work with us to achieve a full year appropriation? You'll submit the budget documents necessary, work with us closely, that we'll be able to do our work so you can do yours.
Senator, we are committed to working with you to make sure the Defense Department gets as robust a budget as possible where we can meet the threats of today and tomorrow.
Thank you. I'll just say at the outset for all my colleagues, I am increasingly concerned that there is a threat that some believe they can best govern by continuing resolution, reconciliation, and rescission, and not ever actually have us appropriate. So I look forward to working with you to avoid that outcome, which I think would both disregard the role of Congress and put all of us at greater risk. It seems to me clear with regards to Ukraine that Vladimir Putin has no serious intent of negotiating. He continues to attack civilian targets night after night with hundreds and hundreds of drones. The Ukrainians have just carried out a spectacular attack against military targets. And it seems to me concerning that the 2026 request eliminates aid to Ukraine entirely. At the same time, the Senate has a strongly bipartisan bill led by Senator Graham and Senator Blumenthal to impose more sanctions on Russia. And many senators of both parties want to provide more aid to Ukraine. Would you agree, Mr. Secretary, that the United States should use every tool it has at its disposal, including additional sanctions, to pressure Russia to come to the table to negotiate a just and lasting peace for the war in Ukraine?
Senator, every tool at our disposal? No. We have a lot of tools in a lot of places.
Let me be more narrow. Let me be more narrow then.
Apply.
You said, and I'll take some exception to this, that our European allies cannot freeload off the United States in perpetuity. My impression is that Article 5 of the NATO treaty was only invoked once. It was after 9/11. And a significant number of our European allies and partners deployed to Afghanistan alongside us and suffered significant combat casualties. In the first 2 years of the war in Ukraine, a war of Russian aggression, 50 other countries stepped forward, deployed military support, delivered materiel, provided financial and operating support. And at regular meetings of the Defense Contact Group, your predecessor led that process of deploying military assistance. What message do you think it sends? That as Ukraine continues to suffer day after day of punishing attacks on civilian centers, we're not using the $3.8 billion in presidential drawdown authority that remains to send additional air defense and interceptors, and you yourself chose to not attend the Ukraine Defense Contact Group. Mr. Secretary, why not use the already appropriated presidential drawdown authority to deliver defense material badly needed by Ukraine?
Well, Senator, as you know, the presidential drawdown authorities 71 through 74 still apply, and they are still flowing. There's some in reserve. To your question about my statement, and I served with a lot of NATO allies in Afghanistan as well. Incredibly capable Canadians, Brits, and Australians, and others. And grateful for them. And I've gotten to know a lot of them in this process going to Brussels. Amazing people, amazing countries.
Thus, I was struck, Mr. Secretary.
But we also wore a patch on our shoulder.
Yes.
That said ISAF, International Security Assistance Force. And you know what the joke was? That it stood for I Saw Americans Fighting. Because what ultimately was a lot of flags, was not a lot of on-the-ground capability. You're not a real coalition, you're not a real alliance, unless you have real defense capability and real armies that can bring those to bear. And that's a reality that Europe is waking up to quickly, and we're glad, because they're
Mr.
our
Secretary.
friends, and we want them to be safe and free and
Yes.
secure. And sometimes that takes true talk and
Yes.
tough love, and they've responded very well to that
They
because
have.
we want them to succeed. And
Mr.
President Trump
Secretary,
wants them
let's
to
just make clear for the record that our military partners in Afghanistan included many who served and died. Our Danish partners and allies on a per capita basis
Don't try to
suffered
make
more.
it look like I don't care about the investments of our partners. Of course I do.
Mr.
I recognize
Secretary-
that there were lives lost from other countries.
Of
but
course
the
there
bulk
were.
of the effort was Americans. And an alliance needs to include other countries and be more balanced
Mr.
to be a
Secretary,
real alliance. And
as I
that's the point
pointed
we're
out
making.
in my opening comments, our partners and allies have stepped up, have invested, have engaged in the defense of Ukraine, and so should we. We should not be pursuing a ceasefire and a negotiated resolution to the war in Ukraine at any cost. Peace through strength means actually using our strength, continuing to support Ukraine, and securing a lasting peace. Putin will only stop when we stop him. And the best way to stop him is indeed through a stronger NATO. I look forward to the NATO summit. I agree with you that a significant investment by NATO in our collective security is a great investment, but we cannot abandon Ukraine. That would put us significantly at a strategic disadvantage. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Are we serious right now? We are listening to the head of our defense establishment spout this tired, grievance-filled talking point that our allies are just leeching off of us, that they are freeloaders who need tough love. It is such a shallow, transactional way to view the world, and honestly, it's completely divorced from reality. Because here is the fact that seems to be conveniently forgotten every time this administration opens its mouth. Article 5 of the NATO treaty, the clause that says an attack on one is an attack on all, has been invoked exactly one time in history. One time! And it was invoked by our allies to defend the United States of America after 9/11. That is the reality. When we were attacked, the world stood up. Nations across Europe sent their sons and daughters to fight and die in Afghanistan alongside us. They did it out of a deep belief in the alliance, and to sit there and dismiss their sacrifice, to act like we are the only ones who ever put skin in the game, is downright offensive. And then to hear this dismissal of the International Security Assistance Force as just, I saw Americans fighting, that is a slap in the face to every Canadian, every Brit, every Dane who came home in a flag-draped coffin. These countries showed up. They spent their blood and treasure to support our security objectives. But apparently, that doesn't count. The narrative being pushed here is that unless you are doing it exactly the way we say, when we say it, you're a burden. It is this arrogant rewriting of history that tries to paint the US as a victim of its own alliances, rather than the beneficiary of a global network of friends who have literally gone to war for us. It's baffling. We are looking at a situation in Ukraine right now where European nations are stepping up, providing massive amounts of aid, taking in millions of refugees, and actually leading on the ground in many ways. And yet, the argument is still, oh, they need to pay their fair share? They are. They are facing a war on their doorstep. This is isolationism masquerading as toughness. It is alienating the very people we need in a dangerous world. If you tell your friends they are worthless freeloaders long enough, eventually they stop showing up. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the goal here is to break the alliance so we can retreat into a fortress. But stop lying to us about the history. Stop pretending that we are the ones who have been carrying the dead weight for 70 years. The only time the fire alarm was pulled, they came running to help us. To ignore that is to spit on the legacy of that alliance. If you are sick of seeing our history twisted to serve a political agenda and want to support content that actually respects our alliances, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe, because we are going to keep calling out this hypocrisy every single day.